What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So I rewatched it real time last night, right? I tweeted about it, and I just thought, this is a kind of movie, and it's a kind of in terms of, I guess, the impact it's had on its own franchise, on the future, on the internet. I feel like this is a kind of a movie that I could maybe talk about. I've only ever seen this movie, well, now twice. I watched it one time in theaters when it first came out. Same thing for the first one, actually, The Amazing Spider-Man. I watched it one time when it came out in theaters, watched the second one when it came out in theaters, never watched either of them again. Now I'm doing a lead up to, No Way Home, watched both of Tom's, watched now both of Andrew's, and now tonight I'm going to watch as many of Tobey Maguire's as I can, and maybe I'll check back in with you guys if you want to from that. But I just feel like because of what The Amazing Spider-Man 2 did, it's something that maybe we can talk about. So, and here's the thing: is it something that people online have kind of over-hated? Is it something that people like? I do think it's something that people do legitimately enjoy. I try to kind of gauge people's opinions on that on Twitter, even, right? Like, where do you stand on the Andrew Garfield stuff? Where do you stand specifically on the second one? Because the first one's actually a good movie. I will, here's myself swearing to it. I swear, on my own life that I believe that the first movie's good. I really do. And the second movie, obviously the point of this, the second movie's tough because I think at its best, it's actually really good. At its best, it's got not just some good moments, but it's actually got some of the better Spider-Man moments. No, I wouldn't even say better moments in any Spider-Man movie. It does have good Spider-Man, like when he is Spider-Man moments, but I think just in general, when it's at its best, it's really, really good. Andrew Garfield, I think, kills it. Again, I think he's a different Peter in 2 than 1. He's a much cooler Peter in 2 than 1, and I know that comes off wrong to people or bad to people, right? They think he is too cool. I do think he is too cool to play Peter, but I don't actually think I like him all that much as Peter Parker in the first one. I kind of do like him in the second one. He still has that kind of he is a little bit more outgoing, but he is still a little shy, a little like nerdy, a little wacky that I do kind of like. But the standout is him as Spider-Man. I don't think there, at least in my opinion, I don't think there's a better portrayal of a live action of somebody playing actual Spider-Man. I think he does an incredible, and in any given movie, not even just like a franchise. So like obviously Tom Holland's gonna beat him in the number of appearances, although technically he'll be in No Way Home, so he'll have 3 and Tom will have 3. But actually Tom Holland's done more, yada yada. But I'm talking about individual, you know what I mean? So I think this portrayal, Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, maybe is my favorite Spider-Man because he's just so good. To me, he kind of captures what Spider-Man is, the personality, the joking, but also the emotion, the fighting, the movement, all of that. The having to, I guess, think on the fly, everything. Everything is really good. So I guess really one of the biggest problems with this movie is they don't use him enough. There are long sections in this movie where he's just not in it as Peter or as Spider-Man. You know what I mean? And I would actually say, as Spider-Man, it is pretty limited the amount of time he's in it. Obviously, I would assume maybe saving it up for that massive ending. But that's when it's at its best. Whenever he's on screen, even whenever Gwen, Emma Stone does a phenomenal job. Whenever she's on screen or they're together, it's so good. It's so good. A lot of the other stuff ruins it. Harry ruins it every single time. And I remember, and again, like I've only ever watched it once, and I watched it twice yesterday. You know what I mean? But I do remember the very first time I watched it, just thinking. I didn't hate it, and I still don't hate it. I don't actually hate this movie, but I do think when it's bad, it's like god-awful, and I don't ever want to see those scenes again. And I remember back watching in theaters, I was thinking, this is just very boring. He's not, I guess, talking about like Harry, it's just not working, like at all. None of the scenes work, not a single one. He just doesn't work as that character, and maybe it's because of like James Franco does a much better job, but I feel like you can't have different takes on it because like Tobey Maguire is different than Andrew Garfield, so you can't have different characters playing the same or different people playing the same characters, but it just does not work. He kills it in a negative way. Like Andrew Garfield kills it in a positive way, and then he kills it in a negative way where it stops everything dead in its tracks. He's way too emo, he's way too goth, he's way too whiny, he's way too bratty. Just all of those buzzwords. It's just not good. And they rush him too. They really makes it seem like, and I've read some of the behind the scenes stuff as well, but like Electro like, and by the way, I hate the look. I don't remember what I thought of it back then, but I can tell you right now, the look is like, in my opinion, it's absolute garbage. I think Lizard has aged better CG wise than Electro in my personal. So I'm very glad they're completely changing how he looks in No Way Home. But I think that looks absolutely awful. But they really set him up to be the Thing. And then it's like, well, he is the Thing, I guess, for the most part, but he disappears for long sections of it as well. And I guess I get it, like, villains do that sometimes, but he's gone for so long, and then you introduce this Harry thing, and it's like, okay, but are you going to do it, like, right away? And, like, his dad is so much older than him, and obviously is, like, so dying, and he does die. And Harry's like 20 years old, and all of a sudden, what, like he's going to die tomorrow? Like the Thing, his dad's like, is your hand shaky, or let me see your hand? And all of a sudden, like the next day, he starts to have like the patch. Like, why is he dying the next day? Why does he need Spider-Man's blood the next day? It literally doesn't make sense why it has to be rushed. So, and I think the reason is because you have to have two villains. You have to tease the Sinister Six, completely unnecessary. Even the Rhino stuff. Like, the message of Spider-Man going back out there and all that stuff, that was fine. But the idea of Rhino, stupid. Another thing that made me kind of annoyed was when they were fighting for the grid, right, with Electro. That was fine. But one of the things in terms of, like, pointless stuff that a lot of movies do, but in particular, like, this movie just didn't need to do, right? Because it has to do so much, or it makes itself have to do so much, and it doesn't do a good job of it. But then it wants to, like, shoehorn, and it's only like a 2-3 minute thing, but it wants to shoehorn the two planes hitting each other. And it's like, you don't need to have, because they put a time limit on it. That's why so they're putting an external almost conflict or an external thing to, like, I guess to maybe double it or to have some sort of, like, mirror of what's going on in the press. So, like, Spider-Man, he's fighting, like, Gwen is there, and obviously, like, that's the fighting section, but it's like, well, you need to have an exterior something about to happen where they need to do it super fast, and it's like, you just don't. You could have just had Electro continue to get more powerful, and it's like, you just need to beat him. Like, that's the only thing you need to do, is you just need to beat him. Gwen is still in danger, Peter's still in danger, and that's kind of it. You don't need to have this external thing of two planes about to hit each other. It's literally pointless. It doesn't need to be there, and it's a small thing, but it's an example, again, of, like, it doesn't need to be there. It's an extra 2-3 minutes you didn't need. It's just more on top of what you're already doing, which is kind of what the movie already is, right? It's just more and more and more, and you don't need it. So, yeah, again, like, there's actually a lot of good. I personally like the Gwen death sequence. I know some people don't, and that's okay. By the way, if we don't agree on certain things, that's completely fine. I liked it, but I just feel it's just the weaknesses of this movie are just so weak. Harry is so weak throughout the entire thing. Him and Andrew do not work. I could never imagine them being friends, by the way. Like, those two, Harry and Peter, it's like, why would they ever be friends? It just doesn't work. Electro, when he's like Max and he's like all weird and he thinks the world, or like Spider-Man saving him and all that stuff, it's endearing in a way. Like, it's fine. When he turns into Electro, though, his personality is just a completely different person. Like, after the talk with Spider-Man in, like, Times Square, after that, he's literally just a different guy. And maybe, because of the electricity, it does change you, but he's not even, like, remotely close. And it seemed like, especially in that scene, that he is still kind of the same guy. You know what I mean? Where he's just kind of confused and all that stuff. But, I can see why people would, by the way, despise his, like, wackiness and his, like, his clumsiness and all that stuff. I can see why people would dislike it. I actually feel like he's weaker as Electro the entire time than he is as just a normal person when he's just kind of all over the place. I think he's worse as the villain. And I don't know, when you have two villains in your movie, the only two villains in your movie, and they're so bad, the other side of it can only do so much. And especially when you don't do, again, like, a lot of it is him as Peter. A lot of it is his relationship strain with Gwen, which is fine, but, like, then she dies at the end, and it's like, well, you could have, like, had them be together so we could see that, because, like, in the first movie, they're really not together all that much, and it's like the second movie, they're also not together all that much. Now, I don't know too much about comics and stuff, but can we get, like, one version where they are kind of together a lot? I mean, I still think it was impactful, like, her death. Like, I still feel like he felt that, you know what I mean? So I don't necessarily think it hurt that, but we just didn't see them together like in a relationship. We did see them together, but a lot of it was kind of like they're strained. It's a strained relationship, which is fine, but we didn't see them together. So, but there's only so much you can do when he's not Spider-Man all that much, when a lot of the movie is really setting up Harry. I mean, the first 50 or so minutes is setting up Electro, and then the second 50-minute, section is setting up Harry. And like that's it. And again, in terms of like big Spider-Man fights, there's only a handful, and they're good. Again, all of that stuff is like it's really solid, and I do think the best of this movie is the best. Like, is some of the highest quality stuff, including actually even again like visuals. The Lizard doesn't look all that great. Electro looks absolutely horrible. Harry looks fine, I guess, when he's all messed up and he's on his glider and stuff. I guess that looks fine. But like besides that stuff looks horrible. There's a range. It's like okay to downright horrible. That's the range of those villains. But in terms of like the cinematics, one thing I will say, I wanna end it also because I don't want to forget this. I really love his actual swinging. Now I watched like the Tom ones. I haven't watched the Tobey ones again. I'm going to. And I have watched them in general, but I don't remember like really pinpointing when he's swinging. Andrew, in both of them, there are long extended scenes where he's just swinging or he's moving around. I just feel like the webs feel the most real. Does that make sense? In his, where like the swinging makes the most sense, or when he's turning, or when he's making momentum for himself. I just feel like it feels the most accurate. And maybe it's also because we see it. I really feel like they focus a lot on the web swinging at points in 1 and 2, where I don't think you get that nearly as much for Tom, and I don't remember, as much for Toby. In the first one, there's scenes too for Toby, but I'll have to see, because I really feel like that's a big standout positive for The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. So I don't know. I don't think it's the worst movie ever created. It is sad in a way that it killed the franchise. I feel like it did kind of deserve it because the mistakes that they made are I don't know. Are they unforgivable? I'm not really that kind of guy that would say they're so bad that they should kill the franchise, but I guess I get why they did, and it's not because of the decisions, it's because of how the movie, was received in all aspects, right? I don't necessarily think you should have canceled the third one. I feel like you just had so much good with Andrew, but with Gwen gone, and then they cut out the MJ stuff, so you only had Andrew, and then like going into the next one, was there any faith that like the villains were gonna be any better, or that now what Andrew has to carry the entire movie by himself, in which he tries to do that in 2, but you can only have him in it so much. Everybody else has to be in it too, and they all suck. So it's like, what would 3 have actually looked like? I would imagine it would have been maybe even worse, because you could introduce, Doc Ock, you could have introduced Vulture, and maybe they would have been cooler than what you would have gotten with it, or what you did get with Electro and all that stuff. But it's an unknown. And obviously they try to, movie studios don't try to bank on, unknown things. So I guess I get it. I understand it. In a way, it deserved it. And I don't really know how it would have survived if it happened. At the same time, though, I don't think it's not like the worst thing ever created. And I'm debating. I'm gonna make a video eventually on my ranking of all 7 live action ones, and I don't think this is the worst one. I really don't. Far From Home is not very good, and Spider-Man 3 I remember despising. So when I watch it again, I'll have a fresh take on it years and years later. Maybe I'll think better of it. Maybe I'll think worse of it. So I feel like there's like a 3-way race for worse, not like it's a definitive, like The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is easily the worst one. No, I think Far From Home could make a claim there, and I think Spider-Man 3 could probably make a claim there, but we'll update that as the days go on. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all the videos go up. I do a new video on this channel every single day. We'll do more on Spider-Man. Again, my ranking, I'll probably do that on the main channel, but we can definitely do stuff here too as well. Let me know what you guys want. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all on the next video.